Mother-in-law was jealous of her daughter-in-law to her son. She felt that she was losing control over him and decided to ruin their wedding. Hi everyone, I am Emma, 26F. The wedding seemed like something out of a fairy tale. I just married Ethan, 31M, a great man. It all began 3 years ago in a nearby bookshop, where I was a regular seeking my daily dose of coffee. One day I was standing behind a tall man with nice eyes and queue. Though he seemed kind, truly I wasn't paying close attention. All I could think about was acquiring a latte. I saw him once more later that week, at the library. We found ourselves conversing while we waited for our coffees. We discussed anything from our favorite books to strange childhood events to our appreciation of that little library. We finally started laughing a lot, and for the first time that day I felt really alive. Looking back, I see I was a little quick to criticize at first. Maybe because Ethan wasn't exactly the kind of man I usually went for, or maybe because I was so preoccupied with my own routine. But on that day something changed. I couldn't overlook his real friendliness and the warmth in his grin. We swapped contacts, and that same evening Ethan emailed me asking if I would like to have supper somewhere. We finally decided to visit a little Greek restaurant nestled down on a side street. Though the cuisine was excellent, the greatest thing was the discussion. We spoke for hours, and it seemed natural. We discovered that we had an unexpected lot in common: tacos, a love of old movies, a hidden fondness for karaoke, though neither of us is really good, and we saw one other more and more throughout the next few months. We visited museums, hiked, and even tried and failed to enroll in a pottery class together. Spending more time with Ethan let me appreciate how unique he was. Always knowing how to make me grin, he was hilarious, smart, and encouraging. He pushed me to grow personally and made me believe I could be myself right next to him. Then Ethan shocked me with the most amazing proposal on our 3rd anniversary. On a weekend trip to a little mountain chalet, outside it was lightly raining, and we were curled up by the fireplace when Ethan dropped down on one knee and brought out a ring. Ethan was kneeling. Since all I could pay attention to was the love radiating in his eyes, I cannot even recall precisely what he said. Of course I said yes. Right from the minute we returned, I began enthusiastically organizing my wedding. Here, however, things started to go off course. Once Ethan and I were engaged, I visited his 56-year-old mother, Linda, for the first time. She lived somewhere outside of town and hadn't had an opportunity to meet me before then. Linda first seemed to be very lovely to me. She spoke a lot about her delight at last having a daughter-in-law. Ethan was her only kid. She said she had always desired more children. Therefore, having me join the family felt like a major event to her, almost like acquiring another child. She even gave me a nice embrace and said she was eager to get to know me more closely. Still, things were changing really rapidly. She came to stay with us that weekend, to spend more time with us and assist with some wedding preparations. At first, I was overjoyed, thinking we would connect and become close. Her attitude started to change, however, throughout the weekend in a manner that unnerved me. The first passive-aggressive remark occurred during Sunday morning brunch. While Ethan was drinking coffee in the backyard, Linda glanced at me and said, "Oh, I guess you don't worry too much about carbs, huh?" After I had cooked some of my best pancakes. Though I laughed it off at the time, believing she was only making an offhand remark, it hurt a bit. Linda pointed to a model and said, "This dress is so beautiful, but it's designed for someone with a very specific figure. Not everyone can pull it off." She looked at me later that day while we were browsing some wedding dress magazines. It seemed like a subdued clue that she thought I cannot wear anything like that. I felt self-conscious, even though I nodded and attempted to shrug it off. When we went shopping for some decorations, the remarks persisted. I was startled and not really knew how to react when she casually said, "You know, my friend S' daughter lost 30 pounds for her wedding. She looks so stunning. Have you thought about doing something like that?" I said something about contentment with my body as it is, but it made me feel as like she was criticizing me for not attempting to drop weight for the wedding. She observed, "Oh, you have a lot of snacks here. I do try to keep my house a bit more on the healthy side. You don't want to end up gaining weight before the wedding, do you?" While she was browsing my kitchen cabinets following evening, she was continuing on about my weight, which was difficult to comprehend and was beginning to really affect me. Though she usually wore a grin and talked in an apparently kind manner, I felt she was picking on me. The odd thing was, Linda never said such things in front of Ethan. She seems to have a switch on and off ability. She would make such passive-aggressive comments when Ethan left or entered another room. She was all smiles and beautiful words when he was there. I felt as if I was living in two separate worlds, one in which I was liked and welcomed, and another in which I was under continual criticism. I initially didn't believe I ought to bring up this matter with Ethan. It is his mother, so I didn't want to cause any conflict between us, particularly since we had just got engaged and were in such a joyful place. I told myself again that I could manage it and that it was just a little hassle. I also have curves and am not quite a skinny girl. Having worked really hard, I am confident in my physique and adore it. More of an annoyance than anything else, Linda S. remarks were, although I thought she was attempting to undermine my confidence, I wasn't going to allow her get to me. But Linda began to come to see us increasing frequency. Every weekend she seemed to be around, and it was beginning to cause some mild craziness. Monday through Friday I had weekends to arrange my wedding. Linda was there, lending assistance or simply hanging around every time I looked around. When she was always around, making tiny remarks and behaving as if she knew more than I did, it was difficult to concentrate on wedding details. She told me one weekend she would be visiting once more. I felt a knot in my gut, as I really wanted some time alone to arrange things free from her influence. I so informed her I would not be at home and would be really busy. When she asked me what I was doing, I blurted out that I was going to look at wedding gowns before I could stop myself. I suppose I wanted her to know I had vital things to accomplish. She surprised me by being really enthusiastic and that she would love to join along. Reluctantly, I accepted as I didn't know how to say no without coming across as nasty. She was at my door with a great grin, chatting about how happy she was to assist me in choosing the ideal garment. When I next knew, though I attempted to grin back, internally, I was worried about the course of this shopping expedition. From the time we entered a few wedding stores, Linda was in full mom mode, recommending outfits I didn't like and remarking on how certain designs wouldn't fit my body type. It was draining. I felt as like I could barely breathe without her crittering me. I was very let down when I put on a dress I really liked because she remarked, "It's nice, but don't you think it is a bit tight around the waist? Maybe something more flowy would look better on you." Her statements made me second-guess myself. I was feeling really down at the end of the day because I hadn't found a dress. Linda returned to her house, and for the following few days, I at last found some quiet. She persisted in nosing me about when I should search for outfits once again via books. I just continued telling her that I wasn't too sure yet when I would have time. I knew this time I wouldn't inform her when I planned to go shopping. But when Ethan informed his mother I was going dress shopping the following day, my intentions kind of collapsed. She then inquired at what time she should visit my residence via a phone. I had to make decisions now. I hated the thought of Linda coming along because she had previously said so many things about my physique. She would ruin the day with further remarks and criticism if I brought her to the bridal store. I therefore resolved to provide a justification. My mother and maid of honor were already on their way, so I informed her the wedding store had a policy allowing me to bring only 3 people with me. Though at the time I couldn't think of anything else, I now recognize this was a very foolish lie. I stumbled for words and replied, "I know it's weird, but that's what they told me." Linda pointed out right away how ludicrous my answer was and added, "What kind of bridal shop only allows 3 people? That's just silly." Knowing how naked my lie was, I was sweating bullets. I hurriedly told her I had to go stop the phone before she could ask any more questions. I had a great sense of remorse as soon as I hung up. I hated lying, particularly to Ethan's mother, but I couldn't face another day of her depressing me about myself. I chose to concentrate on the good and remind myself that today was meant to be exciting and joyful. My mother and maid of honor picked me up, and we proceeded to the bridal boutique. I found a dress I really liked after trying to let go of the residual guilt and just enjoy the experience. Linda never called, texted, or even visited our home after that. She continued to chat to Ethan, which was some comfort as it meant there was no awkwardness between them. Hoping to share some of my enthusiasm with her, I sent her a photo of myself in the wedding dress. She sent nothing else. Her response to the picture was a thumbs-up emoji. Though I wasn't sure how to approach it, I resolved not to focus on it. I didn't have time to worry about her. I had so much to do with the wedding approaching. I grew preoccupied with all the preparations as my wedding day drew near and really stopped texting Linda. Coordinating everything from arranging the guest list to verifying the caterers to ensuring all the decor were flawless proved challenging. At last, the great day came. It exceeded everything I had anticipated and more. I kept smiling as I went down the aisle toward Ethan. The ceremony was lovely. His beautiful expression upon seeing me in my outfit made all the effort of preparation well worth it. We recited our vows, exchanged rings, and then we were married. The reception began really well. The temperature was ideal, and our location was beautiful. Everyone looked to be having a wonderful time, and the food was fantastic. Our first dance was amazing. Having taken a few dancing classes, Ethan and I had worked to avoid stepping on each other's toes. I was on cloud 9, and it seemed like a fairy tale. Up until I chose to have a drink, everything was going well. Linda was standing just there as I went over to the bar to get something reviving. She came to me with a great grin and said, "You look like you're having a wonderful time. Let me get you a drink. Just relax and enjoy yourself." I was a little startled by her sudden enthusiasm, but thought maybe she was attempting to offset all the discomfort. I thanked her and sipped a Shirley Temple she offered me. A few minutes later, I began to feel sleepy, but I assumed this was just from tiredness. I passed out on the floor, however, and lost consciousness. Everything went dark, and the next I knew, Ethan was calling for an ambulance and panicked. As he struggled to keep me awake, I could sense the anxiety in his voice. People were assembling, but it was all a haze. The EMTs came and promptly brought me back to consciousness, then began questioning me about what I had drank and eaten that day. I told them everything, even the Shirley Temple Linda had handed me, and the dinner I had at the reception. Concerned, they wanted to know if I had taken any medicine or if anything seemed odd. Linda, seeming somewhat ashamed, stepped forward at that and said the drink she handed me contained alcohol. She said she felt it would help me relax and that she didn't see it as a major event. I started to become surprised. Why would she, without informing me, add alcohol to my drink? When Sarah, my maid of honor, piped out, things become even more convoluted. Just a few minutes before coming down the aisle, she informed the EMTs that I had taken an anxiety sedative. I took a little dosage to relax because I had been so anxious about things running perfectly. It turns out that my breakdown resulted from the booze and the medicine taken together. Some chemical reaction had to have put me unconscious. The EMTs advised me that I was fortunate it wasn't more severe, as combining alcohol with certain drugs may be rather deadly. Ethan turned to Linda and urged her to get out after the EMTs gone. Linda stared shocked as his voice shook with rage. Ethan refused to pay attention to anything she attempted to explain, that it was only a misunderstanding and she meant no harm. He screamed at her to leave the reception straight away. Having never seen him so distraught, it hurt to watch him so angry with his mother on what ought to have been a joyful day. I was not feeling good among all the chaos, and the reception's overall vibe dropped. The happy environment we had worked so hard to establish just vanished. Guests were uneasy. One by one, people began to go before we knew it. The reception closed early. Seeing everyone go so quickly broke my heart, and I felt as if the day I had long dreamed of had been dashed. Returning to our hotel room, Ethan and I tried to go through everything that had transpired. I was numb and tired, and the grief came at me like a tsunami. Originally meant to be one of the best days of my life, a careless joke had transformed this into a tragedy. It still amazes me that Linda's carelessness marred our unique day. Linda persisted in messaging and phoning Ethan as well as me, but none of us answered. We just needed some time to organize things and decide what to do going forward. Ethan seemed to be absolutely split about it. Though he loved his mother, what she had done infuriated and saddened him much as well. It was a challenging circumstance from which I lacked knowledge on how to resolve. It was difficult, but when we eventually returned home, I tried to put the entire episode behind me and concentrate on our shared future. Each time I considered our wedding day, I became depressed. I kept going back over the incidents in my thoughts, wondering how things could have turned out had Linda not executed her practical joke. It seemed as if a black cloud over what ought to have been a lovely recollection. Fortunately, we quickly headed out for our honeymoon, and it was rather relieving to be free from all the drama and pressure. Ethan and I had an incredible time discovering new locations and making treasured memories together. For those 2 weeks, I felt as if everything was back to normal, the ideal retreat. Without a thought, we laughed, unwashedly relaxed, and delighted each other as company. But reality crashed hard when we returned. Linda was waiting for us at the door as soon as we turned into our driveway. My heart sunk, and I had a knot of nervousness in my gut. Though I knew this encounter was approaching, I wasn't ready for it to start the minute we returned. Her lack of an apology made things worse. She insisted instead that she just intended it as a joke, and that it wasn't her fault. Saying things like, "I didn't think it would hurt you, and I just wanted to lighten the mood," she stood there attempting to defend her behavior. Seeing her refuse to own what she'd done infuriated me. Her attempt to minimize the whole situation, as if it were just a harmless joke, astounded me. Ethan could stand no more. Lost it, he told her this was it. She had gone beyond, he said, and she had to embrace it. If she apologized to me, it was the only way he was ever going to speak to her once again. She had offended me profoundly, he informed her, and it wasn't acceptable. Linda attempted to cut in, but he wasn't having it. From now on, he said, the only times they would be gathering would be holidays. There are no more pointless calls or visits on haphazard weekends. It would be if they were distant cousins who only get together on certain events, he remarked. Linda gasped and began to weep, but Ethan held fast. Though he was resolved to be beside me and ensure that I felt protected and respected, I could see how much it upset him to have to put his foot down with his own mother. A few days ago, Linda called me when I was at the office. We hadn't talked in a while, so I was rather taken aback and wasn't expecting her to get in touch, particularly not during business hours. She wanted to meet, informed me she was outside my workplace. I opted to go meet her outside to prevent any scenes, as I was surprised and most certainly didn't want her coming inside and generating any pointless drama. She was somewhat agitated when we sat down in a tiny cafe across the street. She broke down weeping as soon as we began chatting. It was rather embarrassing as everyone around began looking. She said she found what Ethan was doing unbelievable. He wasn't taking up her messages or answering her calls, saying that she simply wanted things to go back to the way they were before. She was very upset and asked me to speak with him on her behalf. I want to remind you all that Linda had not yet apologized to me for what transpired during the wedding. She seemed to be totally denied the significance of her acts. I advised her to be considering how her actions had impacted Ethan and me, rather than flitting around my office creating a commotion. She wrecked my wedding day, and I told her it wouldn't be fair for me to just brush that aside and speak to Ethan for her. Saying she meant no harm, and that she was sorry I had a response like that. She sought to justify herself. She was unable to look above her own viewpoint and see that her choices had actual consequences. She persisted that she would never have behaved like that if she had known what would happen. People in the cafe began to show us worry as she kept crying. I just wanted to go away because I felt so uncomfortable. Though I offered no guarantees, I promised her I would see what I could do. I'm not sure whether I am ready to forgive Linda, hence I haven't spoke with Ethan yet. She didn't even apologize until I reminded her to, so really. Though I am not sure, my mother advised me to let it go and pardon my mother-in-law. What then do you people believe? I value recommendations. Update 1. Hi everyone. I really appreciate your ideas and comments in Update. Having somewhere to tell my experience and receive encouragement means a great deal. Linda's continual calls and messages were incredibly draining, and it was beginning to wear me down. It was time, therefore, to have another conversation with Ethan and work out a plan for moving forward. I told Ethan Linda had gone to my office and apologized to me. Though in practice her apology wasn't to precisely what I wanted, I thought it was time to try and fix things, even if just a little bit. It was a reach. Mostly true, I told him I had forgiven her, as I wanted to put this entire issue behind us and concentrate on our future. Concernedly looking at me, Ethan inquired if I was sure. I answered him yes. I was ready to go on, but we had to establish certain limits with his mother to stop any further conflict. Though he realized this was more than just about me, he appeared glad that I was ready to forgive her. It spoke to us as a marriage and our yearning for stability and tranquility. Following our conversation, Ethan contacted Linda, informing her he was happy she had apologized to me and that we were ready to attempt to move ahead. He also made it plain, however, that he still firmly believed what he had stated before: no more overstepping limits, no more frequent calls, no more surprise visits to our house. We needed some time to concentrate on our own life, he advised her. Linda answered nearly right away, apologizing for everything, and said she only wanted to be in our life. She assured us of respect for our limitations and of the space required. About the whole matter, I still have conflicting emotions. Although Linda appeared to be considering our limits seriously, on the one hand I'm happy, on the other hand, I still feel a little uncomfortable because one mistake may bring all the drama back. Though slowly, I'm attempting to remind myself that we are moving on and concentrate on the good. Several of you have also inquired about my anxiety problems. I appreciate your concern, even though I just want to express I feel uncomfortable discussing this in great depth. My nervousness stemmed from nothing about Ethan or our friendship. From the time we took things seriously, I felt he was the one meant for me. It was more about the wedding day itself and all the strain involved in organizing such a major celebration. Over 150 people were expected, hence I wanted everything to be flawless for them. I worried so much that something would go wrong, that the food would be bad, the music would not be enjoyable, or the decor would not look the way I had hoped. I became rather nervous as I continued to consider all the tiny things that can sour the day. Our guests should enjoy the time of their life and remember our wedding as a lovely and happy occasion. Update 2. Hi everybody, I'm not sure how I should feel about anything unexpected happening. Everything was going well until last Saturday when Ethan received a call from Linda asking us both to supper at her house. She advised us to arrange this meal so that, with everything that had transpired, we would begin to put things right. Ethan inquired what I wanted to do and mentioned the offer. We should go. I assured him it would be good. Perhaps that was her means of atonement. Linda greeted us kindly when we got to her home, but Linda shocked me with something that left me very perplexed after we had done dining. Rising, she returned with a check for $6,000, saying she was very sorry for spoiling my wedding day and that although she couldn't change the past, she wanted to offer me this money to help offset it. I felt uneasy right away and was very shocked. That was such an unexpected gesture, I had no idea what to say. Right immediately, I turned down the money, telling her I didn't need it and that we should leave bygone events to be bygones. Ethan agreed, but told her she didn't have to give us any money. Linda insisted, however. She ended up violently stuffing the check into my coat pocket instead of returning it. Startled and not knowing what to do, the entire matter was more embarrassing because she appeared eager for us to embrace it. We left her house shortly after and returned home. Ethan and I discussed what had transpired on the drive back, and we both felt rather perplexed. Why would Linda provide us such a big sum of money? It seemed odd and caused me to consider her motivations. Was this her approach of attempting to get our pardon, or was she genuinely sorry? I'm not sure, hence it makes me very uncomfortable. We discussed it once more, Ethan and I, and we still don't know what to do. We both want to manage things in a fair and courteous manner. He is as perplexed as I am. Though we also don't want to feel like we are being paid off, we don't want to offend Linda or turn away her attempts at atonement. I would be happy to hear your opinions if anybody has any ideas or has experienced a such circumstance. Update 3. Since my previous report 3 weeks ago, honestly not much has changed. Though we haven't cashed it, Linda left us with a check. It was simply resting in our drawer, almost as a memento of everything that has occurred. Though for now it's simply there, I'm not really sure what we will ultimately do with it. With Linda, things are rather similar. We are in a type of holding pattern, wherein we are all striving to be polite and cordial without delving too much into the past. She has been honoring our limits, which is really welcomed. She halted the never-ending stream of messages and calls, and no longer shows up without notice. She seems to be really striving to improve. Hence, I have some optimism for the future. Regular phone calls between Ethan and Linda appear to go toward amicable exchanges. That nothing has really damaged their relationship makes me happy. Occasionally, I also chat to Linda. Though there is an attempt on both sides to keep things nice, our exchanges are courteous and somewhat professional. This will therefore be my final update for a while. Though I am hopeful things will keep getting better little by little, I do not see any improvement very soon. Right now, I believe the greatest thing I can do is concentrate on the good and keep on going ahead. Should anything significant transpires, I may resurface with an update, however. For now, I will stand aside and concentrate on enjoying my life. Thank you once again for everything. I hope your day is absolutely amazing. Tell me if you want more specifics or revisions. Update 4. I will also provide one more fascinating incident from before to the wedding. At first, I wanted not to say anything as it hurt for me. Though I am hesitant right now, I will say it anyhow. Ethan and I were mired in the last-minute preparations as our wedding day drew near. Every element mattered, and we aimed for flawless perfection. In middle of all this, Linda chose to celebrate with close family and friends by hosting a pre-wedding supper at her house. She insisted it would be a laid-back evening to release some tension over the approaching wedding. Set on Friday night, a week before our major event, the supper was early to assist with the setup. Ethan and I made sure Linda's home was. Linda greeted us with her customary kind grin, but there was something odd about her. Unlike her, she appeared too eager, almost nervous. We dismissed it, ascribed it to the stress of hosting. The scene became vibrant as the visitors started to show up. Linda had gone all out with the decorations, lighting her living room with candles and flowers to create the impression of a second wedding celebration virtually. I appreciated the work but felt a little uncomfortable about the excess. Though not for the reasons Linda expected, she was driven to make the evening unforgettable. Linda said she had created a special PowerPoint of Ethan's early pictures to present everyone after everyone settled down. I was forward to seeing Ethan's cute younger self because I saw it as a kind gesture. Ethan as a little kid was shown in adorable and humorous images as the lights darkened and the PowerPoint started. The visitors cooed and laughed at the pictures, but midway through the PowerPoint's tone changed drastically. The screen suddenly showed Ethan with his ex-girlfriend Lily from a few years ago. The space became quiet. Though it was a delicate topic, Ethan and Lily had dated for a considerable length of time before things ended amiably. The picture showed them enjoying a holiday celebration, clearly in love. My gut turned over, and I could feel the tension in the room building. Linda carried on showing the PowerPoint, seeming unconcerned with the pain. She even remarked on how gorgeous Ethan and Lily looked together. I looked at Ethan, his face had become white. To indicate his support, he clasped my hand beneath the table, but I could see humiliation in his eyes. More pictures of Ethan and Lily, each more personal than the last, followed in the PowerPoint. Clearly uncomfortable guests started whispering among themselves. I became furious and embarrassed. Linda would add these pictures for what reason? Was she attempting to make a message, or was this only a mistake? In any case, it seemed like a conscious effort to undercut our connection and me. The PowerPoint stopped after what seemed like an age, and Linda switched the lights back on, grinning broadly. The room stayed unnaturally silent. Needing some time to calm down, I excused myself and went to the restroom. My heart was beating, and I could feel tears gathering. Ethan trailed behind me, obviously unhappy. He expressed great apologies, but I felt we had to address Linda about this. Though the mood remained strained, we returned to the living room where the guests were attempting to resume their talks. I asked Linda what she was thinking about adding those pictures. Her response to my query appeared surprised, dismissing my worries as too sensitive. Her answer shocked me. Saying those pictures were a significant part of Ethan's life, she defended her behavior by totally discounting the effect on our relationship. Ethan intervened, his voice sharp, outlining how improper and disrespectful her behavior was. Understanding she had offended her son, Linda began to soften just a little. Her apologies, however, came off as half-hearted and fake. She said she just wanted to highlight Ethan's development, but it was obvious she didn't understand the weight of her behavior. The remainder of the evening flew by. Though the visitors attempted to get over the discomfort, the atmosphere had been permanently changed. Ethan and I waited until the very last, but I was counting the minutes down until we could go. I was both relieved and yet angry as we drove home. Linda having done that astounded me. Ethan told me we would go through this together. Leaning back in my seat, I inhaled deeply. Though I knew Ethan was correct, I also knew handling Linda would provide difficulties. I had no idea, however, that the anarchy she would bring into our life would just be starting point. Please feel free to respond if anybody would like to provide ideas.